Nick Leeson was 28 years old when he single-handedly destroyed the oldest merchant bank in Britain. In just under 3 years, this former plasterer's son from Watford managed to lose $6.6 billion and obliterate a financial institution that had survived the Napoleonic Wars, 2 world wars, and every economic crisis for 233 years. This is the story of how one man's unauthorised trades brought down Barings Bank and sent shockwaves through the global financial system that are still felt today. February 23, 1995 started like any other day at Barings Bank headquarters in London, but by the time the sun set, the impossible had happened. The bank that financed the Louisiana Purchase and counted Queen Elizabeth as a client was bankrupt. Nick Leeson had been Barings' golden boy in Singapore, supposedly making millions in profits through arbitrage trading on the Singapore International Monetary Exchange. His bosses in London loved him because the reports showed he was generating 10% of Barings' entire global profits from his small operation in Southeast Asia. What they didn't know was that every single dollar of profit was a lie. Leeson wasn't making money at all. He was losing it at a catastrophic rate and hiding his losses in a secret account numbered 88888. In Chinese culture, the number 8 symbolises prosperity and good fortune. For Barings Bank, account 88,888 would become a tomb containing losses so massive they defied comprehension. The scheme began innocuously enough in July 1992 when a junior trader on Leeson's team made a small error that cost about £20,000. Instead of reporting the mistake, Leeson opened the error account to hide it. This single decision set him on a path that would end in catastrophe. What started as concealing a minor loss became an addiction to doubling down. Leeson began making unauthorised speculative trades betting on the direction of the Japanese Nikkei stock index. When those trades lost money, he didn't cut his losses like any rational trader would. Instead, he made bigger bets trying to win back what he'd lost. This is the classic gambler's fallacy, and Leeson was gambling with other people's billions. The mathematics of his strategy were insane. He was selling options straddles, betting that the Nikkei would stay stable within a narrow range. This strategy only works in calm markets. It's like betting your entire house that there won't be an earthquake, then betting your neighbour's house when the ground starts to shake. By the end of 1994, the hidden losses in account 88,888 had grown to £208 million. Leeson's bosses in London still believed he was making them rich. How did nobody notice? The answer reveals a catastrophic failure of oversight that would be almost comedic if it weren't so devastating. Leeson held 2 roles that should never be combined in any financial institution. He was both the head trader and the head of settlements, meaning he executed trades and also processed the paperwork confirming those trades. This is like letting someone write checks from the company account and also be the person who reconciles the bank statements. It's internal controls 101, and Barings failed spectacularly. Multiple warning signs were ignored. Barings' head office kept sending Leeson hundreds of millions of dollars in margin calls, supposedly to support his profitable trading positions. Nobody in London seemed to question why a supposedly low-risk arbitrage operation needed such enormous capital injections. The Tokyo compliance officer raised concerns. Auditors asked questions. Financial regulators in Singapore noticed discrepancies. Every warning was dismissed or explained away because Leeson's fake profits looked too good to question. Nan AD break. Nan. Then came January 17th, 1995. At 5:46 a.m. local time, an earthquake measuring 7.3 on the Richter scale struck Kobe, Japan. Over 6,000 people died. The Japanese economy went into shock, and the Nikkei stock index, which Leeson had bet his entire strategy on remaining stable, began to plummet. Leeson's options positions, already nursing massive hidden losses, went into freefall. In a rational world, he would have closed his positions, admitted the losses, and faced the consequences. Instead, Leeson did the opposite. He began buying Nikkei futures contracts in enormous volumes, trying to single-handedly prop up the market and save his losing positions. It was financial insanity. On some days, his purchases represented up to 50% of the entire trading volume on the Singapore Exchange. He was trying to move a multi-trillion-dollar market with borrowed money, like trying to stop a tsunami by splashing water in the opposite direction. One trader later said watching Leeson's orders come through was like watching someone commit suicide in slow motion. Everyone on the Singapore exchange floor knew someone at Barings was making catastrophically large bets, but nobody knew it was unauthorised. They assumed this prestigious British bank knew what it was doing. By mid-February 1995, the situation was beyond salvaging. The losses in account 88,888 had exploded to £869 million, approximately $1.3 billion. That number would eventually grow to $1.4 billion, or $6.6 billion when accounting for the total liabilities. On February 23rd, Leeson left a note on his desk in Singapore that read simply, "Platch, I'm sorry." He and his wife Lisa fled to Malaysia, then Thailand, eventually trying to reach London via Frankfurt. They never made it. German authorities arrested Leeson at Frankfurt Airport on March 2nd after Singapore issued an international warrant. The man who destroyed a bank was caught with a suitcase and a passport. Back in London, the British financial establishment was in absolute chaos. The Bank of England spent a frantic weekend trying to arrange a bailout. Every major bank was contacted. Nobody wanted to assume Barings' liabilities once the scale of Leeson's losses became clear. On Sunday, February 26th, just 3 days after Leeson's disappearance, Barings Bank was declared insolvent. The bank that had been worth hundreds of millions of pounds was sold to the Dutch banking group, ING, for exactly £1. Yes, you heard that correctly. A 233-year-old institution, once one of the most prestigious names in global finance, was purchased for the price of a candy bar. 1,200 employees lost their jobs. Senior partners lost their entire investments in the firm. The shockwaves rippled through the City of London and across global markets. AD break. Nan and Leeson was extradited to Singapore, where he faced 12 charges including forgery and fraud. In December 1995, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 6.5 years in Changi Prison. His wife divorced him while he was incarcerated. He was diagnosed with colon cancer and nearly died in prison before being released early in 1999 for good behaviour and ill health. But here's what makes this story even more disturbing. Nick Leeson wasn't a criminal mastermind. He wasn't a genius mathematician or a sophisticated fraudster. He was a moderately talented trader who made a small mistake and then lacked the courage to admit it. Everything that followed was just desperate improvisation to cover up that original error. The real criminals, if we're being honest, were the executives at Barings who created a system with no meaningful oversight. When investigators combed through the wreckage, they found that Leeson's fraud could have been detected at dozens of different points. Internal audits had identified the danger of Leeson controlling both trading and settlements. External auditors had questioned the enormous margin calls. Regulators had noticed discrepancies. Ron Baker, Barings' head of financial products, had received explicit warnings. Peter Baring, the chairman, famously said in 1993 that he was not particularly well suited to understand the detailed technicalities of Leeson's trading. This willful ignorance at the top proved fatal. After Barings collapsed, regulatory reforms swept through financial markets worldwide. The incident became a case study in every business school, a cautionary tale about the dangers of inadequate risk management and the importance of separation of duties. Yet, despite all the lessons supposedly learned, variations of the same fraud have repeated. Jerome Kerviel at Societe Generale lost €4.9 billion in 2008 using remarkably similar methods. Kweku Adoboli cost UBS $2.3 billion in unauthorized trading in 2011. The pattern is always the same. A trader makes unauthorized bets, hides the losses, doubles down hoping to recover, and ultimately causes catastrophic damage. Today, Nick Leeson is a free man. He's reinvented himself as a speaker on risk management and corporate governance, commanding substantial fees to tell audiences how not to destroy their